Welcome to the Painter Marketing Mastermind Podcast, a show created to help painting company owners build a thriving painting business that does well over $1 million in annual revenue. I'm your host, Brandon Pierpont, founder of Painter Marketing Pros and creator of the popular PCA educational series, Learn, Do, Grow, Marketing for Painters. In each episode, I'll be sharing proven tips, strategies, and processes from leading experts in the industry on how they found success in their painting business. We will be interviewing owners of the most successful painting companies in North America and learning from their experiences. In this series, titled Success Frameworks, Mark DeFrancesco of MDF Painting will be discussing his journey from young painter to veteran business guru. It is a 5-part series. In episode 1, Mark discussed his journey into the painting industry and the many unique advantages this industry provides. In episode 2, Mark covered the most important lessons he's learned over the past 30 years in the industry, including the most common mistakes painting companies make and how you can avoid them. In episode 3, this episode, Mark will dive into his sales and marketing mindset and the mental frame he has used to achieve massive success. In episode 4, Mark will lay out sales fundamentals and deliver an action plan for how you can sell effectively starting today. And in episode 5, the final episode, Mark will walk through his vision for not only the future of MDF painting, but for the painting industry as a whole and how you can capitalize on the upcoming disruptions. If you want to ask Mark questions related to anything in this podcast series, you can do so in our exclusive Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast forum on Facebook. Just search for Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast forum on Facebook and request to join the group, or type in the URL facebook.com/groups/Painter Marketing Mastermind. Again, that URL is facebook.com/groups/Painter Marketing Mastermind. There you can ask Mark questions directly by tagging him with your question so you can see how anything discussed here applies to your particular painting company. What's up, man?
How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. The last episode was extremely chock full of information. Feel like I learned a ton. Appreciate you doing this series.
Appreciate you having me on here.
Yeah, man. So we are sales and marketing mindset and the mental frame used to achieve massive success. You're probably going to be really uncomfortable with this topic, going into sales and marketing, but I appreciate you being willing to go outside your comfort zone.
Sounds good. So I thought about this a bit and I said, if I had to break it down to one word, I think I come from an abundance mindset. And I don't know that that's on purpose. It just kind of happened that way. And what do I mean by that? So when it comes to marketing, I've always just felt like the marketplace was unlimited for me. I mean, I was so darn small. It was me running around, putting flyers in mailboxes and putting signs up. It was just unlimited. Like if one of 1,000 customers who wanted painting done were to call me, it would buoy my business, right?
Yeah.
And even with a much larger business today, I still feel like it's unlimited. And this bothers a lot of people because I do coach dozens and dozens of painting contractors around the country. And they're saying, hey, it's an election year and it's choppy and my lead volume is down 6% from what it was September of last year and on my 3-year average. And I'm like, stop. You're what percentage of the gallons of paint are you actually spreading in your market, And so in the state of Connecticut, even in my best towns, even now, $5 million plus, I'm spreading less than 1% of all the gallons that are being used. And I think early on, I always relied on Sherwin-Williams a lot. And every year I try to get the estimates of how many gallons they think are being sold. This is an interesting thing you could do in your state. How many gallons they think are being sold in the state. And obviously they know how many gallons they sell in the state of Connecticut, but they're estimating how many are sold by Home Depot, Lowe's, the Benjamin Moores, the PPG dealerships, all of this. And they come to a number. And when I take the number of gallons I spread and divide it into that number, it is infinitesimal. It's very small. So when people say the economy is bad or politically it's choppy and people are worried and people are not buying. I don't want to say it's not true, but it's out of my control.
Yeah.
So there's so much in my control that if I'm doing less than 1% of the spread gallons, and all this upheaval's happening. Why can't I still just go take a little bit more if
Sure.
I become better? And that's always been my mindset. I don't know where it came from, but at my highest times and even at my lowest times, I've always known it to be true that there was just way more work than I could ever get done that's out there in marketing, way more leads than I can ever service. So how do I go about getting what's mine and incrementally getting more and more? And I think the second kind of mindset I had, and this is maybe more so in sales, is how can I help you now? So this question of how can I help you now has kind of been my operating system that runs subconsciously through my mind, I think for a long time. And every time I was with a customer, 15, 16,000 times, I was thinking, how can I help you now? And I wasn't dialed in the way I am now with the sales system. I didn't know all these great salesmanship things that I coach now. I was just a guy showing up, trying to help you and solve your problems. And I think it was very sincere. At times I was vulnerable, but I was real and I was authentic. And that authenticity matters to people. So if you come from a place of really wanting to help, I think you're tough to beat. A lot of people come from a place of wanting to make a commission or wanting to make so much in revenue. But if you just approach a project as what really needs to be done here for the benefit of the project, of the property, and then also for the benefit of the person that owns that property, good things happen. So my mindset was always just how can I help now?
Yeah, I think that last one. So how can I help you now? I think there's this misconception, and unfortunately it has been true sometimes, but there's this misconception that it's the salesperson against the homeowner, right? And that for one, that kind of ties into your number one scarcity mindset. For one person to win, the other person has to lose. Versus this consultative relational selling. Hey, you actually have a need. That's why I'm here. How can I serve you? Right. And part of how I'm going to serve you is I'm going to make a good profit margin on this because that also allows me to serve my team, which allows me to do marketing, allows me to do these other things so I can serve more people like you. And I think this idea that you're going to sell to them or enact something on them versus like you said, kind of help them make a buying decision. You guys are on that. I view it as rather than sitting across the table from one another, you're on the same side.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. And I mean, it starts by what you name your salespeople. So our salespeople are called paint care consultants. And I invite everyone out there to take that and use it as your own. It's a paint care consultant. So yes, they're salespeople in our sales room, but when they're out there in the field, when they have a business card and their oversized postcard, it says paint care consultant. That's their job title. Why? Because they're there for a consultative process and exactly what you'd said, Brandon. They're there to sit proverbially on the same side of the table as the customer, where they're saying, "How can I help you now?" And that's why it's so important to really follow a great process that allows you to learn about the customer and about the project in deep ways. So, like, how can I pretend to serve you if I haven't taken the time to ask you and listen to you and ask you and listen to you and ask you and listen to you? How do I really know how to serve you best? All the sales process is holding your hand, holding the hand of the prospect, and walking them through an orchestrated process so that they get more clarity about what they want to buy and why they want to buy it. And you help show them that you're a great option for them. Essentially, you're helping them buy something
Yeah.
in a consultative way. That's all it is. You're never ever selling them something.
Yeah. And I think if we go back to the last episode, we talked about production, systematizing production and how important that is for scaling a business, but it's also important for the experience, for the quality control. And I think what is oftentimes missed is there are a lot of contractors out there that do not do a good job, that don't follow through on their word, that, are gonna, who knows, maybe someone's gonna steal something from the house or whatever. And it is a duty of yours
Yes.
to protect the homeowner who's now trusted you to come meet with them, go into their home. You have a duty to try to protect that homeowner from unscrupulous contractors?
That's so critical. I have one person on my team now, my sales team, who is a high dove. So from a personality standpoint, very caring person, very much doesn't ever want to upset anyone, wants everyone to like them and relate to them. They're a relator. So a dove, there's a book called, I believe it's called Taking Flight. And it talks about the major personality styles as birds. And that's just taken off. Read the book, use it in your sales room. Now, when we talk about appointments we've been on, our salespeople use the birds. I was with an owl. I was with a dove. I was with an eagle. But anyway, this person is a very high dove and they're very much a relator. So they give great service. They're very consultative. They love everyone, but sometimes they have trouble with the close. They have trouble being forceful to say, hey, we want your business. Let's do this. And if you're not buying it right now, let's talk about it more. And let's dance through this whole trail that I've created, right? And so why do they struggle with that? Well, I think because they prefer a maybe to a no sometimes in terms of the actual close. But what had changed the game a little bit for them is when I mentioned that every time you don't get the yes, the same day close, you leave that customer at the mercy of a wolf. And they said, what do you mean? That unscrupulous painting contractor who's going to come in there next because they're all saying to you that they're going to get one more price on Friday and then they're going to call you on Saturday. They're going to get two more prices on Friday and they're going to call you on Monday, right? We've heard this before if you've done any number of sales appointments. If you just say, okay, pack up your stuff and leave, you have absolutely 100% left them at the mercy of a painting contractor who is not as good as you and doesn't care as much as you about the customer. And as a relator, if you really think about that logically and you take that in and you believe that, then maybe you become a little bit of a better closer. And so for this person in my room, hearing it that way actually helped them a lot because I think many of us are just good people who care about helping people and we struggle with feeling like we're pushing too hard to close. And in sales, it's not the best company that wins. It's the best salesperson that wins. So you can have the best warranty, you could have the best company, because really you're competing against like one, maybe two other bids in residential repaint. If you think it's more, you're believing what everyone's telling you, it's not true. You're competing with one or two other people. That's it. And if you're listening to this podcast, they're probably not as good as you
Sure.
and what you're building, right? And so now you go in there and you're just don't push it and don't go through the whole sales process and you pack up like everyone packs up and you leave. Whoever's a better salesperson is going to win. The next company come in, they're not as good of a company, not as good of a warranty. They might rip the customer off. You're leaving that customer at that mercy of an unscrupulous contractor. So we have a responsibility, as you said, to close, not to go give a free quote, not to smile, not to show up a few minutes early, not to, yeah, that's all basic. We have a responsibility to close the deal today, not tomorrow, not next week, not after they meditated about it, not after they talked to the neighbor and the dog and had a powwow, today. Because otherwise, they're really left at the mercy of having a bad experience.
Yeah.
And it's true. That's why painters have a rough reputation. It's for good reason.
Oh, for sure. So the how can I help you now? I want to dive into that a tiny bit because I think a lot of painting contractors they operate under the assumption that, hey, it's pretty white and black. They want this work done and they want it done for the cheapest price. And it's, I have to pull some kind of voodoo magic on them, or I have to, I have to do some sort of unethical selling or pushy sales tactics if I want to actually make more money on the project because what they want is they want this scope of work for the cheapest price possible. How would you
If
respond to
you
that?
want to know, so first of all, that's not true. Most of the people that you meet are not going to buy on just the cheapest price possible. They may think that that's the narrative. And if you think that's the narrative, then maybe it becomes true. But I would challenge you to do one thing. I would challenge you in the course of your sales call to say, what is the most important factor in who you decide to hire as your painter? And close your mouth. And if they say price, because many of them will, I want you to say this next, and you can write this down. Say, if price is the most important factor for you, does this mean that unless I'm absolutely a dollar cheaper than everybody else, there's 0% chance that you'll ever hire me? Is that what you're saying? So follow up that with that little word tracks. And I will guarantee you that 95% of your clients say, well, no, I mean, I'm not really saying that it's just price. I mean, I want to get a fair price, but you have to give good quality and I've got to get this warranty and I need this and I want to make sure you use Benjamin Moore paint or Sherwin-Williams, and they'll start to say all these other ancillary things. And if you do that at 100 times and you see that I'm right 98 of the 100 times, you're going to realize that people actually don't buy on price. And another thing you can do is open your eyes and look at their house. And is that the cheapest home valued house in that whole neighborhood? Probably not. Look at their vehicles. Is it the absolute cheapest vehicle they could be driving that's in their garage? I see this a lot of times with my own sales team, and it's like, they had a Porsche, a Tesla, two Mercedes in the garage, and you think you lost this quote because you were $2,000 more than chugging a truck? No, you didn't lose it because you were 2,000 more. You lost it because one, they didn't like you or trust you enough, or they didn't feel that the price that you gave them, that the value exceeded the price. So you
Sure.
didn't build a value that exceeded the price that you gave them on whatever level, because that's what has to happen for someone to want to buy something. So it's never about price. And when they say it's about price, it's still not about price. But what you need to do is ask the question a slightly different way, and you'll see some of the real things surface. And that's why when I coach sales training, there's not one way to ask something. There's 20 different ways to have a conversation to ask the same thing in different ways. And what you'll find is if you ask the same thing in different ways, it'll elicit new information. Detectives are pretty good at this, right? When they're interrogating people, they ask the same thing, they just ask it in multiple ways, and it helps elicit a different response. So as you get better in the sales process, you see that. Um,
So, Mark, if you did ask someone that first question, what's the most important factor, and they said price, which oftentimes they will, and then you do that follow-up question and said, okay, so if we're a dollar cheaper, or if we're not $1 cheaper, you're just not going to move forward with us, and they say that's absolutely correct.
if
What are the
they, and I
5%?
love this because this is a very direct person. This is
Yeah.
my eagle, right? So I would say, I have to tell you, we're definitely not the cheapest person in the market. We're not the highest person either, but we're definitely not the cheapest, because if we were the cheapest, we wouldn't still be in business. We have to provide value to all of our stakeholders, our employees, our customers, this and that. So we may not be a great fit for each other. And when I put it that way, I mean, I just can't even think of one time when someone has brought it to the thing to like I exit the estimate. It just hasn't happened.
The
But
takeaways.
but people have said to me, yeah, it really is about that. What more than likely happens at that point is I try to right size the scope of work. And what I mean by that is I hear them saying that, and I say, well, because this is oftentimes what I'll say, I'm not the cheapest in the marketplace, and they say, I know you're not, but I'm only meeting you and XYZ painting, and you both have good Google reviews, or you both been in business for a while, or something to that effect. But I want a good price, and it morphs.
Sure.
And then I say, okay, well, then what product is XYZ painting using? Not just the brand, but what's the actual grade of that product, right? Is it contractor grade? Is it premium? Is it ultra premium? What's the prep work like? How many hours of sanding are they doing? Let's go deep into what you actually need. Because sometimes people, they want something, but they're not certain about what they need. They're not expert painting contractors. So it is okay to right size something, meaning sell them what they need.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And I think that's a big issue is a lot of times, Chuck and the Truck's winning because they're comparing apples to oranges and they think it's apples to apples. So you're running a company that has a warranty that's gonna fall through, has a real team, has all this stuff, and then Chuck comes in, gives another quote, and they say, well, he's going to do it for less,
Right.
right? He's going to do the project for less. Well, he's going to do a different project for less, but he's not
Correct.
going to do the project for
And
less.
so I've had I had a call this morning with someone I'm helping with sales in the Midwest, and one of the sales reps, and he said he watched a podcast or something that I filmed where I said the 10% rule. And for me, I would literally say if someone is 10% cheaper than us, I really would evaluate what they're giving you because it's not going to be what I give you. We've been in the marketplace for a long time. We know exactly how long it takes for our people to do certain things, and we have an established price. We don't have uptown, downtown, east side, west side pricing. It doesn't change all the time. We have one price. So let's look at that if it's more than 10% less, because what do you think happens when he charges the wrong price? Why do you think he's so cheap? What do you think he left out? What's missing? What do you think will happen when he realizes that it's not enough labor and material in that number? It's all question based, right? And so it's important to be able to have the mindset that that's how it is. If they're that much cheaper than you, there has to be something wrong. I'm your consultant. Let me figure out what's wrong.
Yeah.
Now, if they're that much more expensive than me, they probably don't want the job. Now, why do they not want the job? Maybe they have a red flag came up where they think you're a customer that they don't really want to deal with. That happens. And I wouldn't say that out loud to a customer, but I would say for whatever reason, they really don't want the job. Maybe they're one of those contractors that is 20 weeks booked out or 30 weeks booked out or something ridiculous where they only want the job if it's double the price, right? So I don't really know. All I know is what I control. And if they're much more than 10% less, they're doing something wrong or they don't know any better. And if they're a lot more, then they just really don't want the business. So let's talk. But you have to be willing to get deep with that. Like if your mindset is how many bids can I do a day, you'll never do salesmanship ever, like not even one time. So the mindset has to adjust oftentimes for I'm going to take a longer consultative process. I want to get deep in the weeds. I want to know why you want this. I want to know what it was like the last time you bought this. I want to know if you would buy it again, what you loved about it, what you hated about it. If you were to buy this in the future, when do you want to buy it in the future and for how much and why? And I get so deep into all these little cavities of discussion and threads of conversation with them that I really have a good picture of what they need to solve their problems. And we call that your accomplish list. And if I could solve your problems, that is a massive part of just winning the deal.
Sure.
But you have to listen. So we just, and again, I was guilty of this for many, many years. You want to put together your estimate, what it's going to cost, the math, it's going to be, and you want to put it in front of them. It's almost like you did a mathematical problem in elementary school and you want to give it to the teacher. Here's my job. Did I do it right?
Yeah.
Is 10 plus 10, 20? It's not that way, man. What's your problem? Can I solve it? I'm going to go ahead and solve it in this way, this way, and this way. Does that all make sense? Is that helpful to you? Yet, great. Well, it costs this much. If we sign here and here, we'll go ahead and get you the schedule. And that begins the closing dance. Okay. And so, why don't we do it that way? Fear, not being comfortable with discomfort. You have to be comfortable with discomfort. People are going to say, I'm getting more bids. People are going to say to you early on, I'm not going to buy this today. People are going to say to you, I have to sit with my significant other and discuss it. People are going to say to you, I don't know what my other prices are. I mean, they're just going to, prospects lie. They do. The people don't lie, the prospects lie, and they're a prospect, and you're a sales consultant. And that's, you have to realize that. So you have to play this sales game with them as the prospect and you as the consultant. So a good consultant is really not rattled. He says, I understand. Then he asks another new great question, and then he listens. And he does it again and again and again in different ways. And eventually, a star salesman makes a prospect feel comfortable, listened to, supported. In some ways, they feel like they're sitting on the same side of the table and they're trying to solve their problems directly, including coming up with different options. I mean, one of the favorite things that we say in our sales process when we're setting the agenda is, hey, we're going to go into our vehicle, put together the pricing in the computer, and we're going to have options. And that's when the fun begins. We're going to sit down and we're going to get to go shopping together. I mean, it's just one of my favorite things to say because going shopping together sounds fun for most people. And it's how you view it. When you talk about mindset, that should be the mindset. How could I help you now? How could I go shopping with you? How could I solve your accomplish list? Not did I do the mathematical problem and does this work? Am I the lowest price? Did I beat contractor A? And so often we mean, was my price low?
Sure.
Like, how many times does the salesperson or the owner come back to a person's home and just hoping that they reveal it and the customer says, "Oh, great, you're lower than that guy by $1,000." Why would we hope to do things that put us out of business? It's like slitting our own throat. Like, I really hope I'm the lowest price. Why? So you're more likely to go out of business? So you have no profit? So you work your tail off and make no money? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to want to be the lowest price.
Sure.
I should want to be the highest value. I should want to say, I have a customer care program where we're going to take care of you. We're going to care about your property. I'm going to offer a long warranty. We're going to do a great job. You're going to enjoy the people who are here. They're the type of people that you want to have in and around your home. Not only are they drug tested, background checked, they're fully trained before they put on an MDF uniform. You're going to want to invite them to your kid's wedding before they leave. It's going to be a pleasurable experience. And you know what? If you ever need something in the future, we want you to pick up the phone and call us. Why? Because it's how we do business. It's smart business, right? And our warranty is simple. There's not 18 million exclusions. It's call us and we're going to try to help. We have great relationships with all of our vendors. They're going to be part of the process of giving us free material and helping out, especially if we're buying ultra premium. Let's do this thing, right? And so that's what it feels like. They feel supported. It's about high value, low risk.
I think the one of the things you said in there, Mark, as well, was essentially selling against a higher price, which is really interesting, right? Because we always think the lower price, and okay, why are they lower price? And then sell against them. Like, okay, they're not gonna. But what happens if someone's a higher price and they're now approaching you about it, right? Like, well,
Yeah.
why are they so much higher? What's wrong with your company?
Again, I go back to an apples and orange comparison. I really need to see a physical quote. I need to have it written down in front of me. And I love picking that stuff apart. I mean, I go really, really deep. I've actually created a few videos just on this where we talk about all the things you would look for. And if you're doing it right and you're confident in your production rates and your measurements and your quantities and everything that you've done there, and you're a professional, I'm totally okay if someone's way higher than me. I just want to make sure that the job that they want to buy is still aligned with what I'm providing. It's possible that this other person might be providing a different scope of work for
Sure.
whatever reason. And I mean, especially in old houses in the Northeast in New England here, we have a lot of historic colonial homes. And, in the last 30 years, there have been a lot of window replacements. So there's a lot less windows being painted, sashes and casement windows. But sometimes there are wooden double hung windows with a million mullions, like a 12 over 12 window. And if you're in anywhere with historic homes, you know what I'm talking about. It's a lot of work. And I see every single week homeowners that have other prices and they're not even clear whether or not the windows themselves are being painted, the actual window sashes. That's mind blowing to me because you could be spending $1,000 a window and not realize that that's in or out of or excluded. And some of it is just the industry is bad. So they're not spending the right amount of time with the customer. They're not detailed in how they write it up and their approach. My guess is if you're listening to this, you're probably more detailed in your approach than most of your competitors. And I would say double and triple down on that. Get
Yeah.
super detailed. And that way there's just complete clarity. This carpentry is included, this is excluded. This scope of work is in, this is out. So I'm never afraid if it's higher than me, but I do plant the seed of doubt. You have to become very good at planting the seed of doubt. What I mean by that is saying, I don't see why it's that. I think that maybe it's a project that they don't want to take on at this time. I can't explain why. And it's okay for you to be authentic and honest and say, I can't explain why. But it's really powerful with the lower bid when you can say things like, I don't know how they're so cheap or why, but just my experience shows me I've got to buy you premium product. I've got to do a premium process. I've got to do my prep work right. I've got to pay people well. And at the end of the day, that costs this. So to do that, something's got to give. And what happens when a contractor, not just a painter, but any contractor gets into a project and they realize there's not enough money for the amount of scope? I mean, it's ask the homeowner, and that plans to see it out. And normally what happens is they cheat things. How do things get cheated? Up on a 40-foot ladder, less prep work gets done. Paint gets watered down. Different paint gets ordered and bought and put in different buckets. I mean, there's so many dishonest things that can happen. Very rarely does that contractor just lose a bunch of money without trying to turn it right. Or do they come to you and say it's double the price now? That's also a recipe for disaster. They really can't do that. So nothing good comes from an underbid project. It does not serve the customer and it doesn't serve the company. And the more honest you are about that and transparent, the more people think and say, "Now, that makes some sense. I get that.
Right.
I trust this guy,"
Right.
right? They like you and trust you and perceive value higher to the point of the sale price. They buy.
For sure. Yeah. Whenever it's about the price, it's really about the value. So we're talking about this mental frame for sales and marketing, mental frame for success. We've talked about an abundance mindset, number one, and how can I help you now, number two. And then we've really, I'd say, dove into sales pretty extensively. Do you want to add a number three or do you want to move into marketing?
I think I like to move into marketing. Marketing has always baffled me, at least the prevailing mindset of painting contractors and how they view marketing has always baffled me. Since I was a kid, I I would hear people basically brag about the fact that they don't spend money in marketing. And even as someone being 18 years old, I'd be thinking to myself, if I have that's like having a great restaurant and bragging that no one goes to it. Like I would like
Not
it
gonna
would
tell
just didn't
anybody
make any
about it.
sense. Or it would say like we have the most premium place and we're gonna serve one customer. I just never understood that. I felt like how you viewed marketing was an extension of how you viewed your company. So if you felt your company was trying to do the right thing and was constantly improving and was excellent in the marketplace, why wouldn't I want to stand on a hilltop and scream and shout to the whole world, we're the best at this. Come and get some of this.
Right.
And I think it's tied up in this idea that to be a craftsman, you have to be small. To provide high quality service, you have to be small. And I've just never believed that. Now, that's a mindset thing. So I think that to be a craftsman, you have to care about doing the job right. You have to get really detailed in your scope of work. You have to hire good people. You have to train them. You have to keep an honest person honest. You have to give them good systems. You have to use high quality tools. You've got to use high quality material. You got to do it right. It's not that complicated. And you got to keep score. And that's hard to do. And you got to constantly recruit and hire and train and continue and repeat and repeat and repeat until what happens? One day you wake up and you have guys that have been with you for 20 years, 10 years, and are really, really, really good painters. And then whatever job they go on, that customer gets a really, really good job. But it's hard to do that. It takes effort and time and energy and process. And I think I always felt when you viewed marketing as something that only the inferior painters do, was a cop out. It was a way of saying, I don't want to grow an excellent team because it's hard to do. So I'll just be really, really small and I'll just pretend that not doing marketing somehow makes me better or makes it a better service.
Yeah.
And from day one, I just thought that that was hogwash. And I just felt like if you did it well, grow it. Now, I will say, if you're an owner and you're content with everything, the profit you make, the family of employees you have, the family of customers you have, how well you're serving everyone in the market, and you love it, then don't change a damn thing. You don't have to be a $5 million business because I'm talking about it, or a 10 or a $20 million, but you don't have to be anything. Right size it to the owner. But most people I meet as entrepreneurs are always trying to improve, grow, develop, compete, win more, win this different way. And when that's the case, it's crazy not to want to stand on a hilltop and yell and scream and tell everyone how great your company is.
Yeah. I think the mindset is that they don't need to market because they provide quality work and so they get repeat and referral business naturally. And if you need to market, then it means that you don't get repeat and referral business, which is obviously incorrect. You're just adding business on top of that business.
Correct. I guess I just don't understand the narrative of do I need to market? It's I want to market. I mean, it's not even a need-based thing. Like we don't need to do anything. You could be unprofitable. You don't need to be profitable. You could have a terrible business. You don't need to have a great business, right? So you don't need to market. You need to want to market. Do you want to market? And what does that say about you as a company? And then people talk about what percentage should be spent on marketing. The highest percentage you could spend on marketing and still be profitable. That's the right answer to the degree that you expect to be profitable, right? And this changes through the growth in the lifetime of your business, right? When your business is in an infant stage, it's a little bit different than as it grows up and gets into adolescence and to adulthood in terms of how it acts as a business, right? But I always loved, and I mentioned it, I think, in the last podcast, the idea of buying as many leads as you can at an average allowable cost that fits with how well you sell. Because if you always do it that way, marketing will never be the reason you're not profitable. Let me say that again. If you always look at the relationship between sales and marketing and choose to spend as much as you possibly can at the right allowable average cost, then marketing would never be the reason your company's not profitable. Okay. So what does this mean? My average dollars per lead is a sales metric. If I'm at 3,000 ADL and I want to spend 10% in marketing, I have to spend 300 or less as my average allowable cost. If I wanted to spend 5% for whatever reason, when I look at all my financials, which I think is a lower number for a growing business, but if I want to spend 5%, then it would be 150 if my ADL was 3,000. What happens if I suck at sales and my ADL is 1,500? Then at 10%, I can only spend 150. I'm a lot more limited in what I could do. What if I only want to spend 5%? I'm limited to 75. Is that feasible? How many marketing campaigns and different tactics are eliminated now because you're not great at sales or because you're just not mature enough business? So to me, that's the right way to look at it because it fits with the level of growth that your business is at. And I know in reading a lot of your stuff with Painter Marketing Pros, one of the things I love about it, Brandon, is you're describing what to do and when. And what you're finding is when you get really built out, you can kind of do everything all the time. Meaning, like, you don't throw away those free things or those really low cost things, but you layer things in and you basically are constantly evolving how you allocate your spend. I mean, that's just what it looks like. It's never, we all want like a magic solution, right? Like do this and it will work. The truth is, you have to do a bunch of things and measure them all and constantly reallocate how you're doing it in order to get the best results. That's just a fact. And you should buy as many leads as you possibly can at or below that of average allowable cost.
Yeah.
So people say to me, well, I don't track, my sales to know what my ADL. Well,
It's just a
then I
black
can't
box, man.
yeah, then just you're guessing then. I don't know because if your sales is terrible, you have to spend less in marketing to remain profitable. If your sales is amazing, you have a lot more leeway to do more and spend more. And what does that do? It propagates a good system. Like I want to spend more on marketing if sales are strong because now all my salespeople earn more money and it grows more in production. And now a year later, we have 20% more crew leaders and 20% more salespeople. And
Yeah,
that's what growth is.
one of the things I'll hear people do, and I'm not a huge shared leads guy, Angie, things like that. I'm not a huge guy of that, but I am a supporter of anything that works. And I think that a lot of these different lead channels you can make work. And so some companies I'll hear, "Oh, we used to buy a lot of leads from Angie or used to do XYZ. And then we got to $1 million or we got to $2 million and we stopped doing it. So now we don't do that anymore. And we do this other thing. Now we invest into, Facebook ads or Google pay-per-click or whatever it is." And I asked them, well, was it working? When you got to 1 million, $2 million, were you making money off those Angie leads? Well, yeah, but then we were able to bring someone in for marketing and we could do other marketing. Awesome. Why would you cut off a channel? I don't care what channel it is
Right.
that's working. If you're making money on it, just layer something else on top. Don't just say you graduated out of this profitable channel. That doesn't make sense.
That's a good way to term it, graduating out. And I think that's one of the mindsets that hurts everyone. They do feel like they're graduating out. And sometimes they look to people who are more built out, whether it's myself or other people that just the millions are higher.
Hmm.
And they think that what we're doing is exactly what they should do, or they need to try to graduate from to that. And that's not true. I mean, anyone who's wildly successful has a lot of different channels happening, and they're constantly one thing that they're all doing is they're all evaluating how it's working, each channel, and they're making moves. Some are making slower moves, some are moving a little bit faster, and it's different everywhere. I could be doing something here in Connecticut that's working amazing, and you can do the exact same thing and try to replicate it in Phoenix, and it may not work exactly the same way. But it would be foolish for you not to try what I'm doing in my channel and for me not to try what you might be doing in Phoenix. And exactly what you said, if it's working, don't abandon it. Even if you find something that works better, find a way to continue to use both
Yeah. And
and
then I
layer it. Yeah,
think we talked about too on the first episode how it's basically diversifying reduces your risk. Risk is an element of business that I think is oftentimes overlooked. We think about cash flow risk going out of business, but there are all kinds of risks to a business. And marketing, if you're overly dependent, relying on a single lead source, it's a really massive risk.
100% agree. Yeah.
Story upon story of businesses going out of, going bankrupt for that very reason.
So I think a better way to view marketing, just from a mindset standpoint, is every potential channel is a tool. And they're different tools. And the tools have different things that they can do, just like tools in your toolbox. And am I getting something out of this tool? Like I may use that hammer all the time and I need the hammer and that's critical. So that's a fundamental thing that maybe more money is spent there or you're a little bit more reliant on that. But there should be 20 or 30 tools. And you can't just, would you take a tool and because you don't anticipate using it in the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, would you throw it away? Or would you keep it in the toolbox? And I think that's what we do as painters. If we find something that works with a better CPE, a lower CPE, and a higher ROI, and we may just put it aside because time is limited and our bandwidth is limited. But it takes a mentality that says we're going to try this just like it is with an employee. We're going to try this and we're going to measure it and help it win. And if it doesn't win, we're going to try to nurture it along to win. And eventually we have to coach it up till we coach it out. So maybe you're coaching up that lead channel until you're like, I don't think this is really for us. And it might have to go dormant for a while. But if it's winning, it could still be in second or third or fourth or fifth place. It should still be in your mix. I would just say you could reallocate your resources because you constantly want to be, our resources are very finite. So we do want to allocate them so that we feel like they're working to the highest efficiency.
Yeah. I think it goes back to your first mindset, the abundance mindset. That first point that you brought up, I think is kind of everything we're talking about. Marketing, you can do more and better. It doesn't have to just be, well, better and different.
Correct. And I think it's powerful there. Like if you don't have an abundance mentality in marketing, where do you have it? In other words, like if because this
Good
is the
point.
beginning of the business machine, right? This is the funnel. It's like turning on a faucet. Like that's the beginning. So how do you create anything that's great if you're slamming down the whole marketing department and not giving it abundance? Like, how do you live in abundance in production or sales if you don't believe in marketing? It's just odd to me. It doesn't, it's like you're cutting off the offense. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I still struggle to understand that mentality many years later. I just chalk it up to contentment or laziness. Contentment's not bad if you're happy with how things are, but then why are you learning to do things differently if you're happy with how they are?
Yeah. So this stuff can be, people can listen to it and understand the logic of it, but then the actual implementation of it, in particular with sales, can be challenging, right? So
Mhm.
say, okay, yes, I do feel that discomfort when I'm talking with the homeowner. It does feel like it's me against the homeowner, and it makes me kind of squirm a little bit. And yes, when you said the maybe, sometimes maybe makes me feel better. It doesn't hurt my feelings. No, is it stings. Even though with sales, you really want to go for the no, and we can dive into that probably next episode. But how do we start, right? For somebody who's just uncomfortable with sales,
Practice,
is there
practice.
a book? I know you do coaching. Is there a
Yeah, I
book?
mean, my coaching, I'm not the only person that does coaching, but practice, practice, practice. And what does practice look like? It looks like listening to, video and audio and reading things that are specific to this. I mean, if you're selling residential paint jobs, that's why my stuff is so powerful for people because it's a system where they have a library of videos that they could train their people on and they could follow a dedicated system. But the more you watch the videos, the better you become.
Yeah,
Like we do sales training. Obviously, we do a 2.5 week onboarding where we train you when you're hired. But we have a weekly sales meeting. We train every single week in that meeting. And I literally sit in the meeting and watch myself on a big screen, which is kind of weird. It's a fatter version of me, so I like that. But I take notes, and people are like, "Why are you taking notes? This is your stuff." And I'm like, "Because every time I hear it again, it sparks some other thought or idea or relevance that I didn't even recognize before." And so, why does like a star athlete continue to run sprints and dribble basketball and practice left-handed layups and do their jump shots? And why do they go and shoot free throws incessantly? Like, why? They're already the best in the world. Because that's what you do if you want to chase greatness. And if you want to win, that's what you have to do. So if you want to become comfortable with the discomfort, get really prepared. Like, why does every professional athlete, they all get nervous? This is your body having excitement and energy to go out there and perform. But if you're prepared, if you're really prepared, you can lock in with that. If you're a singer, if you're an actor, if you're someone performing, they get nervous, they get butterflies, they get discomfort, but they're prepared in a massive way. So when it comes to sales, you have to get prepared, and it doesn't take a week or a month. It takes years to become masterful, but you have to start learning it. So following a process that, listen, everybody tells you the same things when they don't hire you on the spot. They say, I have to think about it. They say, I've talked to my spouse. They say, I've got some other quotes coming in. They'll say the same thing. There's not like 50,000 things that they say. They say five things or less. So you would think after a while, you just kind of realize that one of these things is going to come up and you just have a way to take the conversation. That's all my coaching is. So when we say this as, I don't even want to call it an objection, but when we say this as a prospect of why we're not buying it now, we're usually wanting to elicit new information. There's a side question. There's something else that we can say as a salesperson. So if I've role played it enough time and I've listened to it on video enough time and I've read about it enough time and I practiced it again and again and again and again, what happens with that discomfort? It's still there, but I go perform and I win.
yeah,
It's like when a guy comes out on the field in front of 80,000 people, of course he's got butterflies. Of course. But he's so locked in because he's practiced so much that he's able to go out there and perform at a high level. The problem with salesmanship is we just don't give ourselves enough reps. Like one of the first things I have my clients do is take all of my scripts and read them into their audio files in their phone and make these scripts with their voice, their individual voice, saying it how it's supposed to be said, asking that question, listening, saying this next. And just if you listen to that on repeat for 6 months, you'd be a star. But nobody does that. It's just practice. All it is practice. If I practice, I become comfortable with the discomfort. And then it gets fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man.
So we don't do it because as owners, we got a lot of stuff to do, man. We got to paint stuff. We got to go get leads. We got to get them to say yes. We've got to hire some people. We've got to fire some people. Oh, and by the way, we got to make some money. We got to get some trucks. We got to get equipment. We got to fix faulty equipment. We've got to fix vehicle. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. I think I'm a pretty smart guy, and running a painting business could be a hard thing to do at a high level. Um, so it's not shocking that people don't become masterful at salesmanship. So this is why I think it's important to get a good system, whether it's mine or someone else, plug and play it, and start hiring people into the system and let them be 100% laser focused on becoming great at sales. How the heck can an owner become great at sales? It's almost by accident. Like I became pretty good, but just by accident. I got lucky. Like most people that I coach, the first thing I say is, why don't you not do this yourself? Why don't you hire someone to let me coach your salespeople? Because it's more likely for you to have a $5 and $10 million business if you do that.
Sure.
It's good if you want to know it from a knowledge or from a theoretical standpoint. But if you need to be the guy who's the star salesman, you're just painting yourself into a box that is hard to, you're going to be the bottleneck pretty soon. I could make you great, but I don't know. People, the best guy I've seen was probably 1.7. Well, above 1.7, your family's going to hate you if you're doing all of it yourself. In residential repaint, commercial's different.
Sure. No, yeah, that's really good. Goes back to the people, the process being the sales system, people being, having a good hiring process and bringing on people who can carry that load for you. And I think too, something you'd mentioned in the past episode was you had a conversation with that roofer and he was asking you how much are you paid per hour, right? And it's like $1,000 per hour or $500 per hour. How much would you be comfortable paying a salesperson? You realized you probably shouldn't be doing all the sales. I think when some of this stuff, all this stuff ties together, right? It's the cogs in the machine. And when you're talking about, we have to make sure that things get painted, we have to make sure the trucks get repaired, we have to make sure X, Y, Z, all these things happen. It's also about systematizing your business and making sure you're not doing a bunch of more menial tasks so that you
Right.
can apply yourself to something really, really critical like sales.
Well, the thing is this, like I hear people, owners all the time, they hire me and they want to learn the sales system and they want to go implement it. And then they get frustrated and they say, well, this is a big system. This takes a minute to implement. This is hard. They're going to go look at the next shiny object out there that's maybe
The
easier to
easier
implement.
one. Yeah.
It's not as good. The thing that they're missing is that they're taking themselves away from being the owner. So part of why I made this as a plug and play is for MDF painting. That's 100% why I made it. So I didn't have to be there to have a sales team operate. Just think about this logically. You could be the best guy ever at leadership, sales, painting business. If you have, say, 70-hour week, if you're manic and you're 80-hour week, and you're able to do sales appointments 25 hours of that 80-hour week, right? And you're 100% all in. How much energy, how much juice do you give to sales versus two salespeople that work 45 hours a week and the only thing they worry about is closing the deal? They're way more powerful than you. They give way more energy to the system than you're giving to the system. It's just a fact. I
Yeah.
mean, I hate to believe that that's true, but just think about it logically. And they could be a B player and you could be an A. And they'll bring more energy to it if they could really focus. I'm yet to meet that owner, myself included, who is able to say, no, I'll give it 45 and it'll be all, yeah, like your time might be there, but all of your attention isn't there. If I'm trying to be masterful at salesmanship, it's like a basketball player. He doesn't try to play hockey. He plays basketball. Every time he goes to practice, he doesn't practice hockey. He practices basketball.
Yeah. Well, Mark, I know we have the next episode is going to be all about sales, but given that we did bring up you have a program, brought up a little bit about how it works, uh, people can message you in the Facebook group, talked about that in the opening, but is there another way that they could contact you if they want to learn more about your program?
Yeah, I mean, they could email me. My email is mark@mdfpainting.com, MARK. They could they can call me. They could reach out anywhere. I'm on social media pretty much everywhere. I love helping people. I mean, this is something that kind of happens spontaneously where I people ask me for some help with sales. I think I have better HR systems than I do in sales, but no one talks about that. But our systems are pretty strong across the board. So if someone really wants to be great in their market and grow to that, I'd love to just help them.
Yeah, love it, man. So we talked about the abundance mindset, the how can I help you now, talked about marketing.
Yep.
Uh, if it's working, you always want to be basically using it as much as you possibly can use it, have a diversification of channels, but keep a tight eye on the ROI by channel and mix your marketing budget accordingly, and have an abundance mindset with that. Is there anything else you want to loop into this episode on sales and marketing mindset?
So the other mindset thing is really hard, and I think I still struggle with this. Being okay doing less. And that sounds like it should be a simple thing, but what do I mean by this? If you're the owner and your interactions, your direct customer facing, employee facing interactions start to become minimal eventually, being okay with that is hard. And I don't know what to call that, but it's something that is real. And if you grow a big business, you will struggle with it if you founded your business and you started from nothing. So when you start from nothing, you're busy doing everything, it feels like. But eventually, if you get to the point of doing nothing, you feel guilty. So the truth is, it really, to have a high level machine, that your business is functioning as a high level machine where marketing is winning, where sales is winning, where production and HR are winning, accounting is producing a profit all the time. That system propagates without you. I mean, you might have to be the steward of it and guide it and be the visionary. But when it really gets to the point where it's operating and you're not in it, it feels lonely. So I don't know what that might, but the ability to know that getting to a point where the business is functioning without you in the day to day is a positive thing. And you find other ways to just continue to develop and grow the vision and the trajectory and the leaders that are in your business. So it becomes about building a team and not about building a company and being okay with that. Because sometimes if you're used to doing the doing, there's a lot of guilt and withdrawal symptoms that happen. Like if you're used to being the star painter, it's hard to get out of production. If you're used to being the star salesperson, it's hard to get out of sales. If you're used to being the fixer, the thinker, who has to decide all the marketing stuff, who has to decide how HR is rolling out, who has to decide what move the company's going to take on next, whether it's additional services you offer or how you're going to deal with seasonality. There's all types of complicated things that you deal with. But if you're the only thinker, there's massive withdrawal symptoms when you have a strong team. And this is a very real thing because when you struggle with it, the natural tendency is to jump back in. And we don't talk about it a lot because not a lot of us have probably gotten to the place where we feel that inner conflict.
Yeah.
That's tricky. I'm still figuring that out.
I love that, man. I'm glad that you brought that up. Because I think we talk about logistically freeing your time, what's the cost per hour for that particular role. We don't the guilt, you use the word guilt. We That's not a word that's frequently associated with this. But I've felt it as I've
Yeah,
scaled myself out of different functions and then the team's running and I actually in addition to guilt, I almost, which is weird, but I almost had an issue where I was having a self-confidence issue like, oh, am I not needed?
yes,
It seems like I'm not needed anymore, right? In all these different roles where I thought I was so vital before, and I was likely vital before, but then you build the team and the systems, you're not needed. Doesn't mean you're not worthless. It means that you can go put on your thinking cap and do something bigger.
correct. And that's the critical thing. So I think to not get stuck in that spot of just a frozen spot where you're not putting on your thinking cap to make it bigger, because for many of us it's bigger now than we ever thought it would be, or at least I remember having certain goals, and I think we've surpassed a lot of those numeric goals. But what you also have to realize is, as you build a business, you're going to reach a point where you feel like the business is actually determining who you become. And so you're building a business, but the way it reverberates back is affecting who you become as a person, as a leader, as a husband, as a father, as in all these things. And you don't realize it in the moment, but at some point you look back and it's like, what did I become? So, yes, the purpose of the business is to make profit, but on some level, it's also to see what you could become, because it challenges you in so many ways to grow and to reinvent yourself. I mean, that's what I love about it. I love the reinvention. And when you hit, I don't want to say the top of the mountain, but when you hit a spot that's higher than you thought you would be, you do have to reevaluate what that next mountain is. Otherwise, it could be depressing. And I look at like people that you see retire and kind of wither up in life, where they feel like they're not as valued. They just have to figure out what is going to bring value. And it's something new. And it doesn't have to be away from your business, but it could be a different way of helping your business.
Yeah, 100%. Mark, man, this has been awesome as always. You are a wealth of knowledge. Appreciate you being so open and sharing it. Is there anything else you want to add as we wrap up this episode on sales and marketing mindset?
No, I think this has been great. There's a lot of stuff to unravel. So I appreciate you listening to some of it and rolling through it with me. I hope it's helpful to people out there listening.
Appreciate you, brother. If you want to learn more about the topics we discussed in this podcast and how you can use them to grow your painting business, visit paintermarketingpros.com/podcast for free training, as well as the ability to schedule a personalized strategy session for your painting company. Again, that URL is paintermarketingpros.com/podcast. Hey there, painting company owners. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give us your feedback. Let us know how we did. And also, if you're interested in taking your painting business to the next level, make sure you visit the Painter Marketing Pros website at paintermarketingpros.com to learn more about our services. You can also reach out to me directly by emailing me at brandon@paintermarketingpros.com, and I can give you personalized advice on growing your painting business. Until next time, keep growing.